Andrew casts a Storm of Souls, returning his Timber Paladin from the graveyard to the battlefield. Afterwards, he casts Spirit Link, enchanting his Timber Paladin. What power and toughness does Timber Paladin have now? So, in this situation, we are dealing with two continuous effects. The continuous effect of Timber Paladin is trying to turn itself into a 3/3, and the continuous effect of Storm of Souls is trying to make Timber Paladin into a 1/1. Now, when dealing with multiple continuous effects, we first check in which layer each continuous effect applies in. Then we see if any continuous effect is dependent on another continuous effect within that same layer. And lastly, we look at the timestamp order of those continuous effects. First, let's look at layers. Both continuous effects in this scenario are trying to set the power and toughness of an object. Therefore, they both apply in the same layer, that being layer 7b. They are not dependent on one another either, so we need to take a look at their timestamps to see which one applies first. I think it should be uncontroversial to say that Storm of Souls' continuous effect gained its timestamp when it returned the Timber Paladin to the battlefield. But when did Timber Paladin's continuous effect gain its timestamp? Well, despite not actually affecting anything until an aura actually got attached, the Paladin's static ability generating the effect already existed on the battlefield before that point. It just didn't do anything until an enchantment was put onto the Paladin. Therefore, it also gained a timestamp and the Paladin was put onto the battlefield. Knowing this, it is easy to think that, since they both should have gotten a timestamp at the same time, Andrew should have chosen which one gains an earlier timestamp back when the Paladin was put onto the battlefield. This is usually the case in these scenarios. However, there's also rule 613.7n, which states that if a continuous effect generated by a static ability of an object and a continuous effect generated by a resolving spell or ability that applies to that object would receive a timestamp simultaneously, the continuous effect from the object's own static ability receives an earlier relative timestamp. Now this is pretty complicated, and there's no real easy way to explain it. But what this essentially means is, among other things, if you use a spell or ability to put something onto the battlefield, and that thing and the spell or ability both have a continuous effect apply in the same layer, the continuous effect of the thing you put on the battlefield is applied first, and the continuous effect of the thing that put it onto the battlefield is applied after. This is because the thing that was put onto the battlefield will automatically be assigned the earlier timestamp. This means that the Timber Paladin's continuous effect has an earlier timestamp than the Storm of Souls' continuous effect. Therefore, the Paladin's ability is applied first, making it a 3/3 before being overwritten and turned into a 1/1 by the Storm of Souls' continuous effect. So in the end, the Timber Paladin ends up just being a 1/1. Sorry, Andrew.